Unit 12, Type of Research. Contents: Introduction, 12.1, 12.2, What is research, 12.3, Types of research, 12.4, Conclusion. Learning objectives. It is expected that after reading Unit 12, you would be able to explain what is research, understand different purposes of research, gain familiarity with different types of research and their use at the level of techniques. 12.1 Introduction. Unit 12 is the first unit of Block 4 in the Book 2 OMS Sociology 02. Since the Book 2 has the aim of initiating you into the world of research methods and techniques, it focuses on the very idea of research and the types of research. The main purpose is to explain what is involved in different types of research and how you can make use of alternatives available of different techniques of research. You need to basically try and become familiar with different types of categorizing a piece of research. At the same time, you need to appreciate that none of this type mentioned is an exclusive type to the total exclusion of another type. In fact, synthesis and spirit of eclecticism are likely to help you navigate more smoothly through a research process. You need to be an informed researcher, and that is why the units of Block 4 are there to bring to you a higher level of sensitivity in matters of research. So 12.2, What is research? Research refers to a systematic study of one's chosen subject for arriving at both new and valid conclusions. In sociology, we claim to engage in scientific research of social phenomena. How does a research become scientific? If you study of a subject has been followed a method or logic of investigation, you can claim your research was scientific. Scientific research engages in a research into one's chosen subjects with the aim of contributing to the body of existing knowledge on the subject. Your production of scientifically reached knowledge has to pass through a process of investigation leading to valid conclusions. Validity of your conclusions would depend largely on the methods you have followed to conduct your research. Validity would also depend on how well you have applied those methods. Those evaluating research would also look at the ways your findings have contributed to a theoretical understanding of the subject of your research. Does the above tell you what is research? Perhaps it does not. It gives you a broad idea of what one means by research and how a research can become scientific. In our statements above, we have used several terms, especially one's chosen subjects, theoretical understanding, and validity. An elaboration of those terms will clarify what is research, so let us pick up those terms and explain them. We have mentioned one's chosen subject. This means that there is a clear indication of choice in deciding the topic of research. In fact, this is the entry point. How does one select the subject or problem of research? The choice depends upon multiple factors. It may seem a fairly straightforward matter, but at times can become a matter of prolonged debate, doubt, and conflict. For example, you may refer to Madan, who has described in details how and why he chose to study his own community, the Pandits of Kashmir Valley. Joberg and Nett, in their book on a methodology for social research, have mentioned that fashions, fates, and foibles may affect the choice of the topic of many researchers. Some may wish to improve the prevailing conditions of some aspect of life and may decide to work on some socially useful piece of research. Others may like to work on a problem considered important enough for scientific investigation. So, notwithstanding how and why you have chosen a problem to research, you would find it very useful to ask yourself the questions which Bernard has suggested that all researchers need to ask. Does the subject of your research really interest you? Is it possible to carry out a scientific inquiry on the topics you research? Do you have enough resources to start and complete your research? Are you likely to face any ethical or moral problems by asking your research questions or by using certain methods and techniques of research? Is the subject of your research theoretically significant and interesting? You may find the above questions banal, but I feel Bernard's advice is good for those who are not experienced researchers. Such questions helps a research to probe deeper into the reasons of one's selection of research topic. The second term that we used was a theoretical understanding. What is meant by this expression? Theory has to do with abstraction of facts. A fact is an observation that can be empirically verified. If on the basis of observation of empirically verified facts, if you are able to first construct an abstraction to prepare a conceptual frame that would help you systematize, classify, and interrelate the relevant facts, and third, sum up the facts in the form of empirical and systematic generalization, we can say you have gained a theoretical understanding of your chosen subject. Theoretical understanding helps us to sometimes predict logical outcomes of certain combinations of facts. At other times, such theoretical understanding may indicate the gaps that may exist in our knowledge of the subject. Coming to the point of validity, in brief, we may say that the validation refers in the first instance to a common sense analysis or stating that one's chosen subject is all about or what is its current status. Regarding further steps in seeking validation of a subject, we would study further later in the context of both quantitative and qualitative methods of research. Of course, you are not supposed to rely on the logical and common sense validation alone, because such validation belongs to the category of possibility only and it can never be definite. You will need to use a scale to measure validity. This is a matter you will learn later in this course. We may now proceed to discuss the types of research that you may find in the corpus of sociological literature. But before talking about the types, let us remember to dispel certain notions about sociological researchers. While giving an example of social work research, Reid has pointed out that research is not always what you would call scientific. It may be limited to gathering useful information. Many times such information is very important for planning a certain action and making crucial decisions. Further data collected in such a research work may lead to the construction of a theory at some later stage. You may therefore conclude that there is no need to denigrate research that produces useful information without going into heavy theoretical explanation. You would, on the other hand, do better to recognize that at times mere collection of facts does not lead to a fuller comprehension of social reality. Therefore, data need not be collected for the sake of collecting data alone. For an understanding of the phenomena, you need to be able to build a conceptual and theoretical scheme that would help you to interrelate a larger body of facts and interpret them in a systematic manner. Further, in order to carry out scientific research, you need to go beyond the time and space of your own research setting and seek a generalization on the basis of your findings. This attribute of your research would make it applicable to other areas of knowledge. Finally, you need to recognize that knowledge produced after a long process of research is not just for the sake of producing knowledge. As Weston said, production of knowledge is geared to the search for the good of society. At this point, I would suggest that you go back to the first sentence of the introduction to book 1. This will make you see the sense of training yourself in research methodologies and methods of social research. Let us now delineate the basic types of research after completing the following reflections and action 12.1. Reflections and action 12.1. Read Madan's article In Pursuit of Anthropology and then think about your own interest in deciding to enroll the master's degree program at IGNOU. Write a note of 500 words on why would I like or not like to conduct research on a subject of my choice. 12.3 Type of research. As already mentioned above, you may come across research that is heavily theoretical, while there may be as research specifically conducted in a pragmatic reason of collecting facts to be able to make decision. You already know that irrespective of the fact that a research is scientific, theoretical or pragmatic, it has to be a methodical and may make use of established research methods. In fact, this is one of the reasons why you are reading this course. Mere use of research methods would not, however, make your research scientific. It would be scientific when you deal with concepts, theory or theoretical discourses in the field of your discipline. This is why in this book 1, you read all about our theoretical contribution, different schools of thoughts in sociology to understanding the social reality. In this sense, you would discover that there are hardly any shortcuts in the world of research and there are no alternatives to a long drawn process of research. But you do certainly have alternative types of research to ponder about, therefore, deciding the way you would like to design your research. This is why we talk about types of research. You can combine with the advantage several types of research in your own inquiry. Please do realize that many of them work better in combinations through their placement, as specific types may give the impression that each type is a distinct entity not compatible with the another type. Before going over to the list of types, I would like to stress that you need to take each type as a possible candidate for fruitful incorporation in your research. Often, lengthy debates on the merits and demerits of particular types have made inexperienced researchers feel they need to take a stand while deciding to use a particular method of research. To my mind, these debates were useful to the extent they highlight the multiple uses of each type, but they were also the source of doubt and conflict in the minds of researchers. Very early during the development of scientific research, there was the debate about inductive and deductive research. Adherents of each type fought over the merits of one over the other. Use unit 1 of book 1. Then there was the discourse on the value of theoretical research versus a mere collection of facts. Social scientists began to make distinctions between pure and applied research. The debates ended for many with the realization that the two elements were not opposed to each other. Both could be profitably used as needed for one's research project. Box 12.1. Merdal's advice on combining quantitative and qualitative researches. The ideal community study should start out from a careful statistical analysis of vital, social, and economic data concerning the individuals and families making up the community being studied. The less measurable data on attitudes, cultural traits, behavior patterns in which social stratification is expressed, and the feeling of social status or towards social status on the parts of members of the various groups should then be observed and the result integrated into the framework of social statistical knowledge. Let us now look at the list of possible types of research, similar to the arrangement of Sarantagos into a 15 type of social research. We bring here a list of research type arranged in pairs: basic and applied, descriptive and analytical, empirical and explanatory, quantitative and qualitative, explanatory, casual and longitudinal, experimental and evaluate, participatory action research. If you look at the name of each type, it would become clear that they represent different aspects of research and it is quite possible for you to mix and match them. Combining different types of research would depend on the purpose of your research. It is not out of place to see the box 12.2 for the different types of one's research. Different purposes of one's research. Box 12.1, different purposes of social research. One of the purposes may be to understand a phenomena that has to be far been not researched. If researched, it may be based on unauthentic information. A research carried out with the explicit purpose of this nature is generally called explanatory or formulative research. Another purpose may be to work further on some already known and explained phenomena. It may be involve testing a set of hypotheses in the area of one's chosen subject of research. Research with this purpose is known as descriptive research. Yet another purpose may be to establish a causal relationship among the variables in a laboratory type of setting. A research with this purpose is given the name of experimental research. Let us now discuss each pair of the above list of details. Besides this discussion, there is in the 3 books of MSO 002 each type dealt in detail. 1. Basic or pure or fundamental and applied research. You can look at basic research as pure or fundamental research because it concerns the principles or laws or fundamental rules and aims of achieving knowledge for its own sake. It pertains to the quest for knowledge about a phenomena without concern for its practical use. You can do pure research and verify and remove habits. If the doubt proves correct, you can modify the concerned principles and according to the conclusion results of pure research. You can argue that there is nothing so practical as a good theory. For instance, developing a theory pertaining to the functioning of a group mind, collective behavior, or group dynamics can serve very useful purpose. You can also use pure research to reject it or support existing theories about social phenomena. Sociological have generally carried out pure research in order to discover laws governing social phenomena. Pure research is quite often the basic of evolving necessary concept and technical terminology. While pure research discovers the principles and laws, applied research discovers the way that applying them to solve social problems. Applied research focuses on the analysis and solving of social patterns. In sociology, we carry out applied research in the field of social and semi-social and socio-psychological problems. Sociologists work on pure research when they seek to find out why crime is committed or how a person's become criminal. If some sociologist tries to find out how one can rehabilitate criminals and control their deviant behavior, you would say that they are engaging in applied research. For instance, sociologists making a study of mature and the extent of drug abuse among truck and auto rickshaw drivers or among industrial workers are working for pure research. If this is followed by a study of how to reduce drug abuse among truck and auto rickshaw drivers, it will be an applied research. Besides social problems, you can use applied research for social planning, social legislations, social hygiene, religion, etc. For instance, research in the field of family planning aims at the application of some principle. You can argue that sociology can elevate its importance by emphasizing applied research. Second, descriptive and analytical research. Descriptive research describes a social situation, social events, and social systems, social structures, etc. Its main purpose is to describe the state of affairs as it exists. For instance, a study of drug abuse would cover questions like the extent of drug abuse among the college students, the nature of drugs taken, the costs of taking drug, the source of drug, the effects of taking drug, etc. In social sciences, we often use the term ex post facto research for the descriptive studies. The main characteristic of this type of research is that the researchers have no control over the variables. They can report only to what has happened or is happening. Descriptive research uses the survey. It describes accurately and precisely a wide variety of the characteristic of a population in general as well as the population of different regions and communities. In an analytical research, researchers has to use fact of information already available and analyze them to make a critical evaluation of material. Looking beyond the ideas, facts and figures already collected, a social analyst assumes that behind the accumulated data there is something more important than revealing than the fact and figures. The assumptions is the careful collected fact and figures when related to other variables present in the entire body of data reveal a significant general meaning from which you can draw a valid generalization. The further assumption is that the social analysis is a continuous process throughout the entire research undertaking. The function of systematic analysis is to build an intellectual device where you place properly sorted and sifted facts and figures in their appropriate settings and consistent relationships so that it is possible for you to draw a general inference from them. Facts and figures do not speak for themselves. They are not free and equal. They have many qualifiers, ifs and buts of varying complexities, sources and structures. Facts are never simple. The analyst needs to view facts and figures in conjunction with the subjective reactions to them. Social analysis demand on a thorough knowledge of one's data. Without pertaining and insightful knowledge, analysis is worthless. The very first step in analytical research is a critical examination of assembled materials, keeping steady in mind the purpose of the study and its possible bearing on scientific discovery. Rereading and re-examining the gathered data stirs the imagination of analysts and induces a new way of looking at the problems and the data. One of the tasks in the analysis of data, especially those pertaining to social and personal problems, is the establishment of cause and effect relationship. It is imperative to look at the whole world of causal factors which generally play a significant role in bringing about a complex social situation. It is time now to complete a quick reflections and actions exercise to make sure that you can identify descriptive analytical research. Or of course, one needs to realize that even a primary descriptive study would include some kind of analysis, and conversely a highly analytical research would contain some amount of straight description. In this sense, you are not to look for purely descriptive and purely analytical studies. You need to look at the essential characteristics of piece of research, leaning heavily in one or other directions in order to label it a descriptive or analytical. As mentioned earlier, each type of research has its use in the world of knowledge. So let us complete reflections and action 12.2 and then proceed to the discussion of another research. Reflection and action 12.2. Identify the types of research carried out on voting forecast on the basis of survey conducted in the different organizations and TV channels. What type is the research of social anthropologists who provide an account of the culture of the tribal society? Select any two studies and examples of analytical research from those mentioned in the unit book 1 of MSO2. Write a separate sheet of paper answers the above questions, and also for each study the name of the author, title, and the book and year research of the publication along with the same of the publishing agency. Third, empirical and explanatory research. Empirical research is solely on the experience and observations alone, often without due regard to system and theory. It is data-based research coming up with the conclusions which are capable of being verified by further observations or experiment. In such a research, it is necessary to get first-hand facts to have a working hypothesis and to set up an experimental design. Such research in appropriate when proof is sought that certain variables affects other variables in some ways. Evidence gathered through experiments or empirical studies is a powerful support for a given hypothesis. Generally, explanatory research is qualitative and become useful in formulating hypotheses or testing hypotheses and theories. In this research, the assumption is that the researcher has too little or no knowledge of the problems or situations under study, or is unfamiliar with the structure of the group under study. 6.12.3 for an example of researchers interested in exploring students' unrest in a university campus. Box 12.3 examples of explanatory type of research. One interested in understanding the reasons for student unrest will study dissatisfaction of students with the various problems they face, administrators' apathy to these problems, students organizing under a leader for demonstration, garao, strike, etc., types of students who become active, the support they seek and get from outside agencies, how widespread the unrest becomes, how it is suppressed by police, how leaders are arrested, and how authorities are pressurized to concede some demands. Explanatory studies are also appropriate for some persistent phenomena like deficiencies in the functioning of educational system, corruption among the political elite, harassment by police, rural poverty, etc. Exploratory studies are quite valuable in the social sciences. They are essential in a researcher breaking new ground. Fourth, quantitative and qualitative research. Quantitative research is based on the measurement of quantity or amount. It is applicable to the phenomena that can be expressed in terms of quantity. This type of research is based on the methodological principle of positivism and others to the standards of strict sampling and research design. Qualitative research presents a non-quantitative analysis or is concerned with the qualitative phenomena, that is a problem that is a phenomena relating to or involving quality of or kind. For instance, a researcher may want to investigating the reasons for human behavior. He or she should use techniques such as word association test, sentence completion test, story completion test, and similar other projective techniques. Qualitative research is especially important in the behavioral sciences, where the aim is to discover the underlying motives of human behavior. See box 12.4 for the view that find no dichotomy between quantitative and qualitative types of research. Box 12.4 Ramakrishna Mukherjee's view on quantitative and qualitative research. Mukherjee and Sengupta interviewed Ramakrishna Mukherjee on the methodology of social research, and Ramakrishna Mukherjee clearly spelled out in the following words the relationship between the two types. Quality and quantity is not a dichotomy. There is no either or between them. Quality refers to only distances in variations which are not known to us and therefore cannot be measured. Our job is to find out what are these distances and how to measure them. This distance is the variation between entities we are concerned with. It may be individuals, it may be anything. You will read in more detail about the two types of research while reading Block 5 and Block 6 in Book 2 and Block 7 in Book 3. It may be worth mentioning that you can distinguish the two types of research in terms of their technical and epistemological levels. In terms of the technical level, both types offer you a choice of alternative methods. You can select either or both as per their relevance for your research. At the technical level, there is no much of dichotomy between the two types, but at the level of epistemology, the two types of research adjust quality quite differently, a way of looking at knowledge about social reality. Generally, positivists who use surveys and experimental methods carry out quantitative research. Those who critique positivist epistemology carry out qualitative research. This is the reason why there exists the notion of dichotomy between the two types of research. At the level of techniques, you can happily agree with the Ramakrishna Mukherjee and not treat them as a dichotomous. Fifth, explanatory or casual and longitudinal research. Explanatory research explains the cause of social phenomena. It aims to establish a relationship between variables, that is, how one is the cause of the other, and how when one variable occurs, the other will also occur. For instance, explaining the relationship between the broken families and juvenile delinquency, or between drug abuse and the lack of family control, or between a student strike in a college and the apathy to solve students' grievances. Explanatory or causal research is mainly concerned with causes or the why factor about a phenomena. It does not involve comparisons in the factors of change. For instance, research on violence against women would like to answer the questions why men commit violence. Then it is an example of explanatory research. The hypothesis in an explanatory research expresses the relationship between the two or more variables, and the research design focus on ascertaining the why aspects of their correlationship. The correlationship studies should not be confused with causal studies, as they are not synonymous. Two variables in a hypothesis may be related to each other either positively or negatively, but may not have a causal relationship. Longitudinal research includes the study of a problem or the same body of phenomena over a period of time. For example, prevalence of AIDS among males and females in India in 1979, 89, and 1999. Such studies indicate the trend. The research can also be cross-sectional. This study covers a broad range of phenomena at a single point in time. Experimental and evaluative research. Experiments are theoretically the purest way of dealing with the problems of cause and effect. Therefore, the experiment is the most sophisticated way of getting the problems of explanation. Ideally, in this type of research, the researcher would like to show that X causes and Y. In another show that X causes Y, the researchers will have to demonstrate what X was both a necessary and a sufficient cause of Y. That is, the researcher will have to show that X must occur in order for Y to follow, and that Y is the result of X or nothing else. Controlled experiments involves in manipulation of circumstances. The researchers need to identify the factors which are significant and then introduce them or exclude them in the situation so that their effect can be observed. The identification of causal factors, that the introduction or exclusion or factors to or from the situation, enables researchers to pinpoint the factors that actually cause the observed outcome to occur. Observation and measurement. Experiments rely on precise and detailed observation of outcomes and changes that occurs following the introduction of exclusion of potentially relevant factors. They also involve close attention to measurement of what is observed. Controlled experiment research may be in a laboratory setting or in a field setting. Laboratory experiments are usually of short durations and involve close control of variables to isolate the causal factors. They involve meticulous observations and measurement. Such a method involves a uniform procedures and allows the researchers to measure a specific trait. But laboratory experiments at the same time do not allow the researchers to study things in its natural settings. They can be expensive and have restricted applicability. It is difficult to access the extent to which the test result reflects the responder's experience of the test situation itself rather than the specific ability or aptitude under investigation. Lab setting may produce artificial environment which may affect the test result, and data generated under artificial setting may be seem shaped up. Another kind of experimental research involved an experiment carried out in natural settings. It studies like the levels of income individuals or the issue of poverty, level of working in social office premises, etc. The researchers cannot manipulate circumstances. It is neither feasible or ethical to impose controls in such studies. Therefore, they are to be studied in their natural environment. Such studies are also a long duration and expensive too. To tackle the situation, some social scientists have resorted to a quasi-experimental approach. In this case, researchers are of the lookout for natural occurring experiment situations in which they can see the possibility of observing and measuring the impact of isolated variations through circumstances as they happen, without imposing artificial control. For example, displacement of people as a consequence of a mining project would be called a naturally occurring experiment. Social workers have become increasingly involved in evaluative research. The essence of evaluative research can be reduced into the following three basic questions. How effective is the program or agency or procedure or administrative structure? How efficient is the program? This generates the question of cost benefit or cost effectiveness of the program. Should the activity continue? Is the program effective or efficient? If not, is it right to continue the program? Also, research should not ignore the points like, is the program should sound on moral or legal grounds? A competent evaluator may not ignore the value problems presented. See Mark and Henry 2004. 7. Participatory action research. From its beginning, action research have its environment with practical issues, the kind of issues and problems, concerns and needs that arise as a routine in the real world. The practical orientation remained as defining characteristic of action research. There are some following 4 defined characteristics of action research. First, practical. It is aimed at the dealing with the real world problems and issues typically at work and in organizational setting. Change, both as a way of dealing with the practical problems and a means of discovering more about change in social phenomena, is regarded as an integral part of research. Cyclical process. Research involves a feedback loop in which initial findings generate possibilities for change, which are then implemented and evaluated as a prelude to the further investigation. Participation. Practitioners are the crucial people in the research process. Their participation is active, not passive. Within itself, action research into 2 stages. In the first stage, the research is carried out, and in the second stage, practitioners apply knowledge generated from research. The 2 processes of research and actions are integrated, but this integration of research with the practice limits the feasibility of exercising control over the factors of relevance to research. The setting for research generally does not allow the variables to be manipulated or controls to be more in place, because research conducted not alongside routine activity but actually as part of the activity. 12.4 Conclusion. Unit 12 has explained what is research and with what sort of purpose does one carry out a piece of investigation into the nature of social reality. The list of various types of research is simple to provide you a familiarity with the different labels that we sometimes attach to the sociologist work. In real life, it is not all the easy to put as research into a particular slot. The reason for listening of different types of research in Unit 12 is to merely to indicate that often researchers incline to focus on one other type. Their inclination may help us to evaluate their contribution to the corpus of social inquiry about social phenomena. In a similar vein, we will discuss the subject of research methods and research design before embarking on particular way of carrying out sociological research. Further reading: Mukherjee, PN 200, Methodology in Social Research, Dilemmas and Perspective, and Vinay Kumar, Methodology and Fieldwork, Oxford University Press, New Delhi, Srivastava Vijay, Vinay Kumar. This is the end of the unit 12.